package anyway.
And
It's all stuff his department needs.
Not to slow you down, but there was 44 requisitions.
Oh, really? Done?
Okay, good.
plus the ones I couldn't get to Friday before my machine was blocked out.
Oh, yeah? Well, there's a lot Friday too, wasn't it?
I'm sure it's anyone taking minutes. I was in this weekend trying to get on, I couldn't get on, so this morning I got in contact with IT stuff.
Did Google ever come back up? I didn't have any problem.
I didn't have
They were
trouble with that.
off
I
early.
was locked out of password.
Well, I'm not talking about our system, I'm talking about overall, nationwide, they were down at about 5 o'clock this morning.
Who's
At
that?
least 7. Google and
Oh,
all their
Get
things.
your discussion finished, because I'm gonna yell in a minute. Start this time.
5-minute one. Oh,
Oh,
1
it's
minute.
about a half minute.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Okay, call this budget hearing to order.
Okay.
Please note in the minutes that all are here. This is a hearing, so we're not gonna do the normal opening. Auditors, would you please start your presentation on the hearing?
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you is a proposed 2021 budget for St. Francis County, and 79-page document is a result of 6 months of work prepared by Ms. Amber Mongelay. We've had some 14 days to peruse it and go line item by line item. The Auditor's Office appreciates the due diligence of the office holders for assisting us with this, who are of course transparent with the spending of our taxpayers' money. This document was posted on the county website, and our office did not receive any public comment, correct? We met with the incoming commissioners last week to also go over and review the budget with Mr. Carter, with Mr. Cater and Mr. Buckley. And included in the proposed budget is past year performance, the spending amounts as well. And for a more in-depth analysis, I present the lovely and talented Amber Mongelay.
And Amber, before you start, on the latest publication, you have year-to-date activity for 2020. What date did you use on that?
So the date is actually at the bottom of the report, so it would be the date that it was printed.
12/2,
So
I see it now.
I think it was 12/2.
12/2, thank you.
So as Mr. Severlick said, yes, we start our budget process in July, as that will give us a 6-month analysis of the current year spending. Those budget worksheets get sent out. This year they were sent out on July 8th and 9th to the departments, and in that email, they were also notified that any wage changes outside of the approved COLA rate and the 25-cent raise per the pay matrix would require approval in a public commission meeting. And they were to include both revenue and expenses in their requests. Any additional expense accounts not listed on their budget would just need to be added to the bottom. And any anticipated expenses exceeding $6,000 would require bid specifications or a copy of a state contract or cooperative purchasing agreement to make sure the county is within state statutes as far as spending goes. They were notified that all budget requests needed to be submitted back by September 1st. That date is dictated by statute. The only section of the budget they were not asked to complete was the salary budget, as that is prepared using the 25-cent raise for employees approved when the pay matrix was approved, as well as the 2.3% COLA for salaried employees per the meeting on February 4th, using the CPI rate by the Department of Labor. This also would include raises approved by the commission throughout the year. Retirement figures for loggers were calculated using our approved rate of 9.9% match for general employees and a 7.9% match for police. The insurance rates were calculated using the new teen care rates, as well as work comp calculated by the bill submitted by MOPR. So after that, a compiled budget was prepared and given to the commission on November 12th. So between those dates of September 1st and November 12th, Louie and I discussed proposed changes. And this year was a little bit different with COVID. Typically, we would meet one-on-one with the departments to discuss the changes, but this year a lot of that was done by email. So what you see is the final result of that compiled budget. And we would be happy to answer any questions or over any comments,
Can I-
requested changes.
Not real clear here, but I'm hopefully you can clarify too. Once you arrived at the proposed budget, that was shared with the department elected official or the office manager?
Correct,
Okay.
so,
And they're all okay with it?
well, yes, so what we did is, we would send back, typically, like I said, we would meet in a meeting form, but this year, they were just sent an email to the departments. They were asked to then sign that budget
Okay,
worksheet
that's
saying
fine.
that
I
they
just wanna
approved
make
it
sure
and
we're
sent
not
it back.
pulling any surprises to them.
Now, there were a few that we did not receive signed budgets for, which mostly because they either didn't take the time to just sign it and send it back, or they were too busy, or verbally said that they were okay with it. Excuse me. I think, excuse me, the only department that I think we maybe disagreed with on a little bit was the IT department. And I don't know if you have
Other
any
than that.
more to say on that. Excuse me, our only issue is that the requested documentation wasn't provided, so we did not fully propose the figures that he requested.
So it's being approved then, or recommended?
We recommended the auditor's figures based on the documentation we were provided, but I don't know if Mr. Faulkner has any requests to change what has been proposed, but we weren't comfortable proposing figures that we didn't have the backup documentation on. So, and I don't know if he wants to speak more on that, but we did inform him, I think it was on November 2nd, that we would be proposing different figures than what he had requested. I think some of them included raises for employees that hadn't been approved, as well as equipment purchases that exceeded that $6,000 limit that we didn't have any quotes or bid specs or anything on.
Jared, you wanna speak to that?
Yeah, we can.
Jared Faulkner, IT Director. Yeah, the reason that we don't have specs on all the money right now is with IT stuff, you never know what's gonna happen from day to day with the COVID. You always have more stuff that's gonna pop up for you, and you have to pay for it up front compared to everything else. Just like, last week, I just got from Kevin, sent me a thing with the state of Missouri that we have to update all of our security plans throughout the whole county. They did an assessment last year in November of 2019. The rating out of 2.0, we scored a 0.83, which is very low and not very secure in this whole department. So with that being said, I have to update every single equipment that we have here, and not knowing that in the beginning of doing budgets back in July, I wasn't aware, and this always pops up. So that's why we always add a little extra in each department for equipment and stuff to cover costs like this, instead of trying to play makeup where we could come with the money.
So your request has been increased, do you know how much?
Technically, from last year's budget, I do believe it was around 627,000. And I-
675.
And I did decrease that down to 528. So it's not like we're going over what last year's budget was. I've already decreased it by over 100,000, but I needed that extra that I had in there for the reason of stuff like this to pop up.
Well, from this form, your 2020 budget was 675.5
Correct.
thousand, and now it's 466.
Well, from the one that me and you signed, I've actually had it set, I do believe at 528.7.
Okay, that didn't show up on this.
Right. So that's where the auditors wanted more input of what exactly we're buying and what needs to be bought. At this time, I don't know because I'm still going over that budget from the state. With all these reports that are required that I've been trying to push through, I have had those in place before we can get a bid of the state actually help covering the first 3 years of this program. And then it would all fall back on us. But just like anything else, we gotta pay for it up front and get reimbursed back for it.
So, to the auditors, what would remedy be for this? I mean, how could it be handled?
Well, I would like to point out, if you don't mind taking a look at the 2018 and the 2019 budget. The 2018 budget was less than 300,000, as well as the 2019 budget being a little over 400,000. So the reason the budget was so high in 2020 was because of all the anticipated security upgrades that Mr. Duncan had overtaken, which is why the equipment line item jumped from 35,000 to 100,000 to $232,000. And the actual activity of the budget over the last few years has far exceeded the actual expenditures have not come close to the budgeted expenditures. So in 2019, it was probably the closest of actual expenses of 393,000 to the budget of 407,000.
So,
And even in 2020, there's only been about 421,000. So the standard trend, what we proposed was 466, which, yes, when you look compared to 2020, it looks like a drastic drop, but in comparison to the 18 and the 19 budget, it is on trend. And we still budgeted for $100,000 in equipment, and he did request 200,000, but that was probably the biggest drop in the requested budget. But also included in there, like I previously stated, was wage increases for his department, which did not go through a public meeting, on which Mr. Faulkner was made aware on multiple occasions that he needed to get that approved.
if I might continue some of that, which would be better for us to under budget it and have to have unexpected expenses for equipment or compliance with whatever, or have it budgeted and not use it?
So again, I mean, like I said, we have budgeted, even in the current year, was $232,000 in equipment, and only $100,000 was spent. And if you look at that line item over the last few years, it's not exceeded, just barely over that $100,000 budget. And we weren't opposed to increasing that line item, but the detail that Mr. Faulkner provided as far as anticipated expenses didn't coincide with the specific departments he was listing as wanting to increase their systems, like off-site backup. Most of our offices, aside I think for maybe one, already have off-site backup through a hosted service. So our Tyler is not, none of our information is stored here. All of that is stored with Tyler Technologies, which they are required through our contract to back up,
So-
as well as like the recorder's office and the assessor's office. All of them are all hosted and don't require an off-site backup. So when I questioned what offices, we weren't able to get that information from him as far as
Yeah, I got
what
that.
the expenses
I guess the question is like, should we be prepared for unexpected expenses, or should we?
Oh, absolutely.
Or
And
would it
that's
be
why I
better
wanted to point out
incur
that
that expense and be over budget?
even in the past few years, we far have undershot the budget by what has been done. So our proposal is to be more conservative with allowing for those.
Because you
Unexpected
don't really know,
purchases.
do you? I mean,
No.
a lot of times you don't know.
But
I'm not,
what he was asking for is $100,000 over what has been spent in the last few years. $100,000 in expenses is a lot, and that's why we were asking for specifics, and we're unable to get that information. So it wasn't that we were against increasing, we just couldn't get the documentation we needed
but is
to
that
suffice
documentation
increasing the
possible?
line item.
No, I mean, it can, but I have to go through the whole thing. It's just like a lot of the stuff, I started, June of 22, or sorry, June 22nd, 2020. The budget had to be turned in by July, well, first it started July 8th. So I'm taking over someone that recently passed away, did not leave any notes, any kind of prepared information of what's being done, what has not been done. And then I'm trying to play catch up with everything that needs to be required, just like the report I received last week that was done a year ago that wasn't expected. So to justify all that, I have to need something to have a cradle to cover. Now, as far as the pay increase, I wanted to add that into next year's budget because of the education part that we're doing. Therefore, if we increase with the education to each employee, I figure we could prove by the minutes of getting that employee a raise.
Again, we don't budget anything that's not approved.
Correct.
So until you get it approved, it can't be budgeted on our end. Now, the commission, it's
Right.
ultimately their budget, and if they want to increase that to allow for raises, that's not something the
That's fine.
auditor's office
I mean-
can approve as far as the budgeting goes.
But could you tell me why in the same budget, like I said, I started in June, so I don't know how long all my other employees been here. But when it was budget for 124, you guys dropped it down to 120.
Well, that,
I mean, that's why I was just asking.
What's the
because,
line item, sorry?
It's a wages for general staff.
That's budgeted, so those figures,
Right.
I would have sent those to you, those are based on the COLA or the 25-cent raise for your current staff. So it's not, the reason it went down is there were higher paid individuals within
During the
that budget.
2019 and
Correct.
2020.
So
Okay.
those are all based on what your employees currently make
Okay.
and what they will make.
And that's
with
fine,
the-
I don't have a
the
problem with
raise.
that.
So it wasn't that we took anything
Right,
away,
right.
but you were sent that with your
Right.
budget request.
Like I said, I got all these other reports too, so, but I understand that. Now I'm
Which
good
is
with
why we give,
Right.
you know, we start this in July to give people, you know, over 8 weeks to do this, as well as the next 8 weeks after that to meet with us and go over this. But I get that Mr. Faulkner did step into a very difficult position, and we did try to help them as much as we could. We gave them all the budget notes that Dan had from the year prior, how he broke it down, all the backup he gave us to show him as an example of what we in the auditor's office would need. And to kind of show why the line items were so high in 2019, or in 2020's budget.
Well, I understood you've asked for 528,000
Right.
plus, and you've, finalized 466 in yours.
Correct, that's what was given to the commission on the 12th of November for you to review and to make changes or ask questions as you guys saw fit before the hearing.
And also, as far as the backup, yes, every person has a backup that goes off-site, it is that. But for the continuance of operation by law that I've read is if this building or any county building goes down, I have to find them another location within 12 hours to get them back up and going. So therefore, that's everybody's computer that I have to move from that office. So I have to have a local backup, even if the programs are all online, to move over, because a lot of people save stuff, not always on OneDrive and stuff. So they'll have to have their documents and everything. So that's why the backup was in there, so. And like I said, I didn't explain it on the paper.
And that's,
Right.
again, that's,
But that's
I'm not
something,
saying that we're.
No, no,
you know,
no, not saying,
But there's been a lot of opportunity given to Mr. Faulkner to provide this detail to increase the budget to what he requested. It was just, when we asked for it, we were never given any information. So I'm not saying that what
Right.
is listed in there should be the final budget. That's just what we proposed based on the information we had.
Okay. Any more input, either one? Okay. questions from anybody?
Harold, and I don't know what you're gonna do in this file, but in the past, as long as they've left enough reserves, then the department has the ability, if something comes up, to seek your approval to get it and change the budget then.
Correct.
In
So if
next
a, if
November.
a
So as
large,
long as in the big picture, you've left enough reserves in.
Yeah,
and
right.
we
No,
have-
it'll show over budget until November.
correct,
Right, but I mean, we do have that ability, which
Yeah,
most of the places I've worked has not had that ability to say, okay, if something comes up, we've got enough money sitting there that you guys can get it and then change your budget in November. And that may be something you may want to do in case of unexpected IT.
NIT is in general funds budget, so even though his department says that's his total expenses, the way we do our budget amendments at the end of the year are based on the entire fund as far as expenses go. So the likelihood of a budget amendment needing to be done would probably would require a very large expense, unexpected, to require that budget amendment. But yes, if there is a need or purchases that come up that are an emergency or anything, the commission can approve that and approve a budget amendment be done to accommodate that.
And Kevin's right, and it answered Gay's question about over budgeting or under budgeting, and the theory and philosophy behind that.
Well, and just like 2020, I mean, if you look at the actual expenses in the IT department, and I ran my updated budget report as of today. Current expenses for the year for the
You
IT
show
department.
402 at the first of the month.
Only total $420,000.
For 20.
You know, and there's $675 budgeted, so that's money that's being withheld within that department that other departments basically aren't able to use because we've already set that money aside here. Well, if it's not used, then it's essentially wasted budget funds that could have been used for something else.
Okay.
And if you look, I mean, like Kevin had said, you know, as long as there is money available. So if you look at the bottom line for general fund, we anticipate a little over $900,000 being left in general fund at the end of 2021.
Compared to what years?
So,
Give an example.
let's see, so 2020s, there was approximately $1 million, almost 1.1, anticipated to be left over. Prior year, 2019, was about 1.5 million, and in 2018, it was about $2.5 million.
So
As you
we,
see, the trend is the county is spending a lot more money than what's coming in over the past few years.
in the past 3 years, we're down $1.5 million.
Over what's coming into the county as far as revenue, which is mainly sales tax.
Okay.
Thank you for your hard work, all of you.
Okay. Any other comments on yours?
Are you gonna propose an increase be requested for any specific line? Or are you,
I can probably give you one to at least try to keep the equipment part because of also with the Weber Road facility that we had to update the security over there because of the break-in that we've had and the proposed bid that we had was at that time between 20 and 30,000. That was not budgeted for anything else, and I in last week's meeting or a couple weeks ago, we pushed that off to next year's budget. So that was something new that popped up as well. But I can give you more detail on that.
well, I think that's, you would have to make a motion in this meeting
This
to
one?
increase
Okay.
that line item, and the commission might have to vote to change it.
Do you have that bid?
Yes, I still have that bid right here, exactly what the bid was. But it was just one bid compared to.
Better get.
Right.
So we've not went out and sought competitive bids on this, or?
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We went out and did.
This was the sole provider, is that
Correct.
right? Is that
Yes.
my memory? Okay.
Yep. And that final cost was $19,616 plus a $50 charge per month for the AT&T's cell phone service, in case someone tries.
600 and what per month?
$50 per month.
50 per month,
Yeah.
okay.
So we was gonna readdress that at the beginning of next year, just see what it would do. If we get any more bids in and stuff. Cause that was one out of, I think they were either up in Eureka or Baldwin, somewhere up in that area. In the city. Then I can give you more details. I know it won't be today, but after I go through all that report for the cybersecurity part.
We're gonna have to act on tomorrow.
Right.
Well, I would say that if the commission wants to take that bid, then you could amend your budget today, and tomorrow we could adopt it, the budget as amended. Is that the way you want it? I mean,
Correct, they would just have to vote on a specific dollar
Amendment.
amount to change that equipment line item. Cause right now it's,
And then, do they need a final vote today in order to move the report forward, or just close the public hearing?
well, they'll have to close the public hearing and then they'll actually vote tomorrow in
Tomorrow
public
for the
session to
amendment.
Yeah, we've got-
approve the budget, whether as
Now,
presented or
when
amended.
does the amendment, when do you want the amendment approved, is my question?
That has to be done tomorrow
Yeah,
prior
because you have
to,
to be in regular session, I think, to do that, isn't it?
prior to approving the final budget.
It's on the agenda for tomorrow.
The agenda,
But the
my
amendment-
point is the amendment will be done prior, and if,
Would be two items on the agenda.
yeah, well, we've already got it on the agenda, we just, when you take it out, we'll have to amend it before we finally approve it. That's it.
Jared?
If you decide to do so.
As I understand it, your 19,600 plus $50 per month, 21,000 will cover that.
Correct, roughly, yes.
So if we adapt it by 21,000,
That would cover that cost, but I don't know the other cost for the security part.
out there?
Well, no, just overall, but the new stuff we have to do to increase our score by the state. Now, we might not need all that's recommended from my side, and it might be just enough, but I said I didn't know about the general funds to help cover cost of other stuff as well, in case of an overflow.
Well, I think what we might want to do is just run behind on the budget until November for stuff that comes up that we have to do,
Right.
and do it that way. Maybe adapt it for the 21,000 that you know about. And anything else that you know about, that you know the cost of,
Right.
that's a question. Is there anything else?
Now, right off the top of my head, I can't think of, to give you an actual number.
Okay. Well, we can amend it by that 21,000
Right.
that we know about, and then just anticipate that those items that come up will run behind budget until the November when we can adapt the budget.
That's fine.
So tomorrow we will vote on an amended budget,
Mhm.
is that right?
Correct, so
Bring
if
the
you guys go
budget
ahead
up,
and vote,
Then you amend it, and then you vote for the
Okay, I
final.
want two agenda items, one to amend the budget and one to act on.
Don't need it, just bring the
Nope.
budget up. The motion goes forward to amend after it's brought up, and then the motion is to adopt the budget as amended.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
so don't they have to vote today to approve that amendment?
Well, that's why I asked earlier if you wanted to vote.
This is a hearing, it's not to make.
It's the hearing, and they didn't want to have a vote on it today, so they will have to vote on it prior to adopting the whole, or technically what you would do is adopt the budget as amended by the amendment comes up. Even though we have the hearing, when it comes up tomorrow, you can make changes in it
Before you approve.
before you approve it.
Yeah.
Once it's approved, it's set. And that's
Okay.
where I'm, but that's what the public hearing is for, is to discuss any changes that they may want to.
We're not gonna vote today. Okay, are there any other topics that you have? Okay, any other topics anyone have?
As far as I was aware, that was the only department that really had any issues.
Next regular meeting is tomorrow.
We are not in session, are we?
Yes.
Adjourn the
Yes,
public
you are.
We
hearing.
adjourn the hearing.
Yeah.
Adjourn the public hearing.
Public
Okay.
hearing.
All in favor,
I guess
aye?
they're gonna listen to it.
Thank you all.
Hope I didn't